The world has taught you to believe that love is salvation, that somewhere in the vast desert of existence there waits another who will make the thirst bearable. But this belief is not born from truth. It is the narcotic dream of nature itself. For love, my friend, is not the promise of heaven. It is the camouflage of biology. The will disguises its chains with flowers so that the slave might sing while being dragged. Once, there was a time when life knew nothing of yearning. The animal existed without mirror. It moved, ate, fought, reproduced, and died without a single thought of I. But then came the wound of consciousness. The moment the creature became aware of itself, it felt alone. And that loneliness, that silent void between being and knowing, gave birth to the myth of love. It was not invented by poets. It was invented by pain. Love is the narcotic nature administers to keep the species alive. You think you are seeking another heart, but what you are truly serving is the will to live, that blind and tireless force that uses you for its endless continuation. The tragedy is that you believe you are free in love. You believe you choose your beloved, but it is not you who chooses. It is the will, the faceless, timeless drive that whispers through your blood and names it destiny. The human being is merely the puppet that gives the instinct a face. The poets will tell you that love is divine. They will say it redeems, that it awakens, that it makes existence bearable. But ask yourself, why does love burn so feverishly in the young? Why does it fade once nature's purpose has been fulfilled? Why do those who once swore eternal devotion find themselves estranged, even repulsed? Because the will has already used them. It does not care for eternity, it cares only for repetition. Once the command of nature is obeyed, the mask falls and the illusion cracks. Every gesture of tenderness conceals a biological transaction. The softness of a voice, the warmth of touch, the longing gaze, all are strategies of the will. The body is a conspirator far older than your conscience. It plays the game of continuation while allowing you to believe it is the game of meaning. And yet, the deception is so perfect, so intricately woven into every fiber of your being, that to see it feels almost sacrilegious. For to pierce the illusion of love is to touch the loneliness of existence itself. Look closely at the moment two lovers meet. Behind the poetry lies a trembling machinery. Hormones collide, genes negotiate, bodies speak in codes older than language. You call it chemistry, a fitting word, for that is all it is. Two organisms recognizing in each other the potential for replication, dressed in the robes of affection. And when their eyes lock, when their breath sinks, when they say I love you, it is not spirit answering spirit, but nature applauding its own cunning. Even the feeling of destiny, that electric certainty that someone was meant for you, is nature's hypnosis. It must feel sacred, or the body would rebel. It must feel cosmic, or the intellect would interfere. Thus, the will gives its orders in the language of eternity, though it serves only time. And the tragedy is that we believe it. We believe the music, the poetry, the vows, the trembling confessions whispered at midnight. We believe it all because the alternative, that love is a mechanism of survival, is too unbearable to face. But I will tell you the truth. The will does not love you, it only needs you. It uses your dreams as bait, your hope as fuel, your suffering as proof that you still obey. It disguises its command in the fragrance of desire, and you call that fragrance romance. It laughs when you weep for love, lost for it, knows it will make you love again, and again, and again, until you see that every soulmate was only another mask the same force wore to keep you chained. Yet even in this cruelty, there is a kind of beauty, a tragic poetry in how life deceives itself to continue. The lie of love keeps the species from collapsing into despair. For if we saw clearly that our tenderness is only nature's machinery, many would abandon life altogether. So the illusion is merciful. It gives meaning to what would otherwise be unbearable. It paints the cell so beautifully that we forget it is a prison. Still, every illusion has a crack, and through that crack, truth whispers. You hear it when the passion fades, when the touch that once set your soul aflame turns cold. You hear it when the one you called eternal becomes a stranger sleeping beside you. You hear it when love that defined madness dissolves into routine, resentment, or indifference. The truth is not that love ends. It is that the illusion no longer holds. You may resist this idea. You may insist that your love was different, that it transcended the biological command. But look closer. Even in the purest affection, the will hides. Even in the most selfless devotion, the instinct smiles behind the curtain. You are a stage upon which nature performs its oldest play. And like every good actor, you believe the role is real. But perhaps, and this is the beginning of wisdom, perhaps there is a certain dignity in knowing the truth. To see the will's deceit and still love, not as slave but as witness, is to become something more than its instrument. It is to look upon the machinery and find poetry even in its cruelty. For only the conscious sufferer can be free. The rest are merely dreamers trapped in nature's masquerade. So let us begin with this wound, the beautiful delusion of love. It is the first lie, the most seductive of them all. And like every sacred myth, it must be shattered to reveal what lies beneath. Silence, a single breath. Nature does not love you, it only needs you. Desire begins as a whisper, not in the mind, in the blood. It rises uninvited, a slow pulse of unrest that spreads through the body like heat through metal. You call it attraction, chemistry, lust. But beneath the skin, it is the will commanding its host. Continue, persist, multiply. Every desire is the will gnawing at its own flesh, promising relief it will never deliver. It creates the wound, then offers pleasure as the cure. But the cure is only the prelude to the next wound. You are devoured by what you seek. You are tormented not by what you lack, but by what the will makes you believe you need. You think you are chasing pleasure, but pleasure is only the bait. What you are truly chasing is an end to the hunger, a brief silence in the endless noise of wanting. Yet the silence never lasts. Even in the instant of fulfillment, the will begins to stir again, whispering more. That is why no kiss ever lasts long enough, no touch ever truly satisfies, no body ever remains sacred. For desire feeds not on what it attains, but on what remains just out of reach. Lust, that fever of the soul, is not a celebration of life. It is the body's rebellion against extinction. The orgasm, which you call ecstasy, is the will's brief victory cry, the moment when nature uses consciousness to achieve its goal, then casts it aside. The afterglow you feel is not joy, it is the exhaustion of the puppet whose strings have been violently pulled. In that moment of release, the will has spoken, and for a fleeting second, the mind goes silent. Then, as the pulse slows and awareness returns, the hollowness sets in the realization that you have been used once more. The poets will tell you that desire ennobles, that it gives meaning to longing. But look closely, does it? Does it make you noble or merely restless? Does it awaken spirit or only sharpen absence? Desire is a mirage that moves as you approach. The moment you reach it, it fades, revealing another in the distance. This is not romance. This is slavery by design. And what you call love at first sight, it is not magic, it is recognition. Recognition of the will's chosen vessel, a body whose form promises continuity. Your heart races, your palms sweat, your mind floods with fantasies, not because you have met your soul's twin, but because the will has found what it wants. The intellect, ever the servant, rushes to justify it. It calls it beauty, compatibility, destiny. It decorates instinct with reason, so that the command of biology can wear the mask of meaning. But reason is the servant of the will, not its master. The most brilliant mind collapses before the simplest desire. You can analyze love, understand its mechanisms, dissect its illusions, and still fall helplessly into its trap. Because to understand the will is not to silence it. You may see the chain and yet still kiss it. Every act of desire carries a kind of humiliation, the awareness that you are not as free as you believe. The will manipulates your dignity, your intelligence, your dreams, all for one ancient purpose. And yet, you obey. You obey because the disobedience feels like death. To renounce desire is to face the emptiness behind it, and most cannot bear that silence. So they chase the next distraction, the next touch, the next body, believing this time it will be different. But the pattern remains: wanting, fulfillment, emptiness, wanting again. It is the will's eternal circle, the wheel that turns until the grave. Look into the eyes of the one you desire. Behind your tenderness, there hides the will's brutal logic. You do not love their soul, you love the way their existence momentarily silences your own despair. You mistake relief for connection. You mistake biology for destiny. And in that confusion, you find tragedy, art, poetry, all the beautiful debris of suffering. Even the language of love betrays the truth. You say, I am consumed by you. I burn for you. I cannot live without you. Oh, do you see? You do not speak the language of peace, but of torment. You describe not harmony, but obsession. And nature smiles, for that obsession is its masterpiece. For the will, the individual is expendable. It does not care for your happiness. It only wants continuity. The will is the silent tyrant behind all passion, indifferent, ancient, absolute. It commands you to seek pleasure, not so you may rest, but so you may remain bound to the cycle of existence. And what is lust, then, but the will's way of forcing the mind to serve its endless project? You might say, but love feels transcendent, it feels divine. Yes, and that is precisely why it works. The deception must be absolute. If desire were honest, it would revolt you. If you saw the mechanical exchange behind every caress, you would recoil. So nature makes it feel holy. It baptizes instinct in the language of soul, and the mind, desperate for meaning, kneels before it. Even those who claim to renounce the flesh are not free. The monk, the ascetic, the celibate they have merely redirected desire into the will to deny. It is the same fire wearing a different robe. To conquer desire entirely would mean to extinguish the will itself, and that, Schopenhauer said, is death. Life is the will made visible, and the will is desire eternal. To live is to want. To stop wanting is to cease to be. And yet, there is a strange beauty in the recognition of this torment. To see desire not as sin, nor as salvation, but as the will's plaything that is the beginning of freedom. For when you see the strings, the puppet begins to move differently. You no longer dance blindly. You move with tragic awareness. You feel the hunger, and yet you do not mistake it for love. You ache, but you no longer worship the ache. The world will tell you to follow your heart. But the heart is only the will's instrument, beating to the rhythm of need. Follow it, and you will return to the same valley of longing, over and over. See it clearly, and you may still enter the valley, but this time you will not mistake the mirage for the oasis. Desire is the will's most elegant cruelty. It promises joy, delivers suffering, and leaves you wanting more. It is the will's way of ensuring that you will never find peace, for a peaceful being is a useless being, and so, through the fever of lust, the will keeps existence in motion. Every lover becomes its servant, every birth its victory, every heartbreak its echo. You cannot escape it entirely, but you can learn to see it. You can watch desire arise, burn, and fade, and in that awareness, the will begins to lose its hold. It still whispers, but you no longer confuse its voice with your own. You begin to see that not every pulse of wanting deserves obedience. Some desires exist only to remind you of your captivity, and sometimes seeing the chain is already the first movement toward freedom. So let us descend deeper, for the will does not end with the body it hides also in the world we have built around it. Desire was nature's lie, now society has perfected it. Nature built the cage, society painted it gold. The same will that once drove the animal to mate in silence now wears perfume, recites poetry, and calls its bondage choice. We no longer serve instinct in the forest. We serve it in advertisements, in films, in the glowing prisons of our devices. Desire has evolved not in essence, but in decoration. The lie has become sophisticated. Once, nature whispered, reproduce. Now, the market screams, romance. The command is the same, but the mask is modern. We no longer call it biology. We call it finding the one. We call it self-love, connection, chemistry, the spark. All And behind those words, the same ancient force laughs. Every image, every melody, every story we consume all polish the same illusion that love will save you. The world tells you that love is freedom. But look closely, freedom is the one thing love never gives. What it gives is occupation, dependency, and fear of loss. And the modern age has perfected this dependency, turning the oldest instinct into the most profitable addiction. The economy feeds on your loneliness. It sells you romance like religion once sold heaven, perfume bottles shaped like temptation, films scripted like sermons to desire, dating apps engineered like slot machines, each swipe a prayer to the algorithmic god of attention. You are not searching for a soulmate. You are data in motion. You are the will digitized, a pulse on a screen, seduced into thinking it has agency. And yet, the lie feels beautiful. We swipe not because we believe, but because we fear silence. Silence reveals the emptiness. Silence reveals that the love we seek outside is the echo of what we cannot find within. So we chase reflection after reflection, hoping one will finally solidify into meaning. But mirrors do not hold you. They only return your gaze, slightly distorted, until you no longer recognize yourself. Society thrives on this distortion. The more disconnected you feel, the more you buy to simulate connection. A new outfit to be desired, a new gadget to be noticed, a new trip to photograph, so the world may envy your curated joy. Even suffering has become aesthetic heartbreak, turned into art, loneliness into content. You no longer live love, you perform it. And in performing it, you lose what little authenticity you had left. The will has merged with the machine. The old instinct found its perfect partner in modern technology. Together, they have created a self-replicating illusion desire that sustains the economy, and an economy that sustains desire. Nature wanted the species to continue. Capitalism wants the market to grow. They are two names for the same hunger. And in between them stands man exhausted, overstimulated, yet never fulfilled. We call this progress. But progress is only the refinement of the chain, where once the body was bound by instinct, now the soul is bound by advertisement. You no longer love the person you love, the image of yourself reflected through them. You no longer desire their essence, you desire the validation their attention grants you. The will has become social currency. Desire has become a performance of identity. We do not fall in love, we fall into roles. Look at the modern lover. He does not say, "I want you." He says, "You complete me." He demands not companionship, but redemption. And so the cycle of illusion deepens two beings, each mistaking the other for a cure to the emptiness that neither can heal. Two mirrors facing each other, reflecting infinity, seeing only themselves. Even the idea of self-love, worshipped by this age, is a subtler lie. It tells you to adore your reflection, to celebrate your desires, to make yourself the object of your own worship. But this, too, serves the will, for it keeps you bound to the same endless cycle of seeking satisfaction through image and affirmation. You are told to love yourself, but what you are truly taught is to consume yourself, to turn even your soul into a brand. And so, desire has become mechanical, a transaction masked as tenderness. We have industrialized intimacy. We speak of connection, yet everything is filtered through performance. We seduce not by being, but by appearing. We curate our longing, edit our pain, sell our vulnerability as authentic content. We live in an age where nothing is more commodified than the human heart. But the consequence of this constant simulation is an epidemic of emptiness. We are surrounded by desire, yet starved of meaning. We have everything within reach, yet nothing within grasp. The will, amplified by technology, now runs without rest. Even solitude is noisy. Even silence has a hum. In the past, a man suffered because he could not find love. Now he suffers because he cannot stop seeking it. Endless choice has become its own prison. We have mistaken abundance for fulfillment and stimulation for life. We scroll through faces as if through souls, forgetting that behind each profile lies the same ache, the same illusion, the same will. The tragedy of modern love is not that it has failed, it is that it has become entertainment. We no longer deal of heartbreak, we monetize it. We turn pain into poetry, poetry into product, and product into another mask for the void. And beneath it all, the will laughs, for it has never been so efficient. Yet, in this machinery of seduction, there are moments brief, flickering, where truth leaks through. When the music fades, when the screen goes dark, when the lover's face no longer distracts, there arises a quiet terror. A whisper that says, "I am still alone." That whisper is the truth. It is the sound of the will without its disguise. And though it frightens you, it is the beginning of freedom. For to see the illusion does not destroy beauty, it reveals it. The world's false tenderness loses its power, and what remains is a clarity sharper than ecstasy. You begin to see love not as salvation, but as reflection, a window through which the will looks at itself. And in that recognition, there is something almost holy, the awareness that every soul is fighting the same invisible war. The more we escape solitude, the more we carry it with us. The more we seek to be completed, the more divided we become. We build towers of light, skyscrapers of desire, and still the night remains within. For the will cannot be conquered by excess. It only quiets when it is seen. Suppose. Breathe. Listen beneath the noise. The hunger that drives you is not personal, it is cosmic. And the world that sells you cures is built to ensure you never heal. The will has found its perfect machine, man himself. A creature clever enough to see the trap and yet still in love with the chains. Love is the most exquisite form of self-deception ever conceived. But man could not bear to call it that, so he called it sacred. He clothed his servitude in the garments of devotion, and from that illusion was born poetry, art, music, the entire architecture of what we now call romance. The poets are not liars in the vulgar sense. They are priests of delusion. They turn suffering into meaning, longing into transcendence. They make us believe that pain ennobles us, that unfulfilled desire is proof of depth, that heartbreak is somehow divine. But behind their sonnets and symphonies lies the same unchanging reality, the will in torment, seeking escape from itself. You believe love refines the spirit, but what it truly refines is the will's cruelty. For what greater cruelty is there than to promise eternity to a creature who must die? The will whispers, "You shall be one," and we build cathedrals to that lie. We marry, we pledge, we carve names into stone, as if to shout against impermanence itself. But the stone erodes, the words fade, and the will, unmoved, begins again through other mouths, other hearts, other vows. Every love story is a variation of the same tragedy. Two beings chasing the illusion of merging what cannot merge. Consciousness cannot fuse, it can only collide, touch, and retreat. We are islands pretending to be oceans, and in that pretense, we suffer beautifully. For beauty, too, is the will's consolation prize, a veil thrown over agony to make it bearable. The romantic does not seek truth. He seeks intoxication. He wants to drown in another, to forget the wound of individuality. He calls it passion, but it is the will's hunger wearing perfume. He confuses annihilation for love, and when the intoxication fades, he calls it betrayal. Yet nothing was betrayed, for nothing was ever whole to begin with. Even art, which pretends to elevate love, is only the will's dream of permanence. The painter immortalizes the beloved's face, the poet eternalizes her name, the composer repeats her memory in endless chords. But each act is an attempt to stop the inevitable decay. Love's art is man's rebellion against transience. We aestheticize pain so we may survive it. But the artist, the poet, the philosopher, they all share one secret. They are not in love with the beloved. They are in love with longing itself. The beloved merely provides the stage for their worship of the unattainable. What they adore is the ache, for the ache gives life texture, and the illusion gives pain a purpose. Without it, the silence would be too vast, too real. Every heartbreak is the will's mirror cracking under its own reflection. You suffer not because you lost another, but because you lost the illusion of wholeness they gave you. The pain feels existential because it is It exposes the void you've been decorating with fantasy. The lover's absence becomes unbearable because it leaves you alone with what you have always been running from, yourself. And so, humanity has chosen to romanticize the wound. We sing of broken hearts as if they were proof of life. We confuse suffering with depth, but suffering does not make one deep. It only makes one honest, if one dares to look. And honesty is the one thing romance cannot survive. For to look clearly is to see that love is not holy, only hypnotic. Think of how we speak of love. We say it finds us, as if it were grace descending from heaven. We say it changes us, transforms us, salves us. But who benefits from that salvation? The will, for love's drama keeps the will alive, turning the loneliness of existence into narrative. You become the protagonist of your own suffering, and you cling to it, because meaning, even false meaning, feels better than the silence of truth. There is a cruel symmetry in this. The will creates the wound, then inspires art to glorify it. It burns you, then teaches you to praise the flame. And when the ashes cool, you call it wisdom. This is how life deceives itself into continuing. Without illusion, there would be revolt. Without longing, there would be stillness. And stillness is death to the will. So, the world applauds its poets and lovers, not because they have seen truth, but because they keep the lie alive with beauty. They make the unbearable exquisite. They give despair melody. They teach us to suffer gracefully, and we, grateful slaves, call it love. But there is another kind of artist, the one who sees through the glamour and still paints, still writes, not to seduce, but to reveal. He knows the beloved is an illusion, and yet he looks upon her with compassion. He does not worship her as goddess, nor condemn her as deceit. He simply sees, and seeing, he forgives. For he understands that she too is captive to the same will, dancing under the same spell. To see this clearly is to stop accusing the other. The tragedy of love is not betrayal. It is participation in a cosmic scheme neither party designed. In that moment of seeing, something breaks open, not in despair, but in clarity. You realize that love was never meant to satisfy, only to awaken. The pain of losing it is the pain of waking from a dream you didn't know you were dreaming. And though you wake to emptiness, that emptiness is cleaner than illusion. It is not the end of love, but the purification of it. You did not love them. You loved the echo of yourself they awakened. And perhaps, if you can see that without bitterness, you will glimpse a gentler form of love, a love stripped of possession, stripped of mythology, a love that does not beg to last forever. Such love is not passion, it is understanding. It is the quiet recognition that even illusion, once seen through, is part of the great necessity, and in that quiet, you will find not joy, but relief. The relief of knowing that nothing was taken from you, for what you thought you lost never truly existed. It was only the will, playing its eternal game through your trembling hands. Silence, a slow exhale, the music of surrender. You did not love them. You loved the dream they awakened in you. You may think you have loved, suffered, awakened, but the will has only changed its disguise. It does not release you because you have seen through it. It merely shifts form, adapting to your new understanding. It is patient, eternal, tireless. Even when you curse it, you are still serving it. Even when you swear you are done with love, the will waits in silence, whispering beneath your breath, want again. The will is the root of existence, the blind, irrational drive that makes the heart beat. The seed sprout, the species continue. It is older than thought, older than reason, older than you. And because it is the essence of life itself, it cannot be destroyed without destroying life. That is why even the enlightened man still desires. Though he sees the trap, he remains its prisoner, for he cannot stop being. To live is to want is to suffer. And so, existence becomes the slow turning of a wheel. Each spoke another generation, another craving, another illusion of happiness. You may escape one desire, but you will awaken in another. You may renounce one form of love, only to worship another shape of longing, the pursuit of power, of fame, of meaning, of peace. The will is cunning. It does not care what you want, only that you continue wanting. The object changes, the structure remains. Look at how love follows this law. You win the beloved, and the fever fades. The same face that once seemed divine now grows familiar, ordinary. The miracle becomes routine, and in that routine the will begins to itch again. You tell yourself the fire is gone, but it was never fire, it was hunger. And hunger does not love satisfaction, it despises it. Fulfillment is the will's momentary death, and so it revives itself through boredom, through jealousy, through the fantasy of more. Thus, even the most faithful hearts are haunted by restlessness, not because they are wicked, but because the will does not allow peace. Peace is stagnation, and stagnation is extinction. The will must suffer to exist, and it ensures that existence will always be restless. And when desire dies, fear takes its place. Fear of loss, of aging, of irrelevance, new disguises for the same anxiety of survival. You think you fear losing love, but you fear losing the illusion that your life has meaning. You think you fear loneliness, but you fear silence. For silence is the will without distraction. The mind cannot bear that stillness. It would rather suffer than cease to want. Observe the pattern. The lover chases the beloved, suffers in desire, achieves the union, suffers in familiarity, loses the beloved, suffers in memory, and begins again. Each stage promises relief. Each stage delivers pain. This is not failure, it is design. The will's perfection lies in its cruelty. It creates beings capable of imagining happiness so that their suffering might be endless. Even our highest ideals are infected by the will. The philosopher claims to seek truth, the artist beauty, the saint God. But beneath those noble words burns the same compulsion to overcome, to reach, to continue. The will hides beneath every virtue, turning even renunciation into another form of longing. The monk who flees desire still desires holiness. The ascetic who denies pleasure still clings to salvation. The will wears 1,000 robes, each one sewn from the fabric of illusion. It does not rest. It cannot, for to rest would be to end the world. Even now, as you listen, it stirs within you. That faint unease, that trembling beneath thought, that is the will reminding you that you exist only to serve it. You think you are the subject, the thinker, the observer, but you are the instrument. You are not the one who wants. You are what the will uses to want. And yet, you resist. The intellect rebels, for it has glimpsed what the will conceals. It knows that every pleasure is fleeting, that every attachment will decay, that every victory leads only to new defeat. This knowledge is unbearable, for it exposes the futility of life itself. The intellect is the prisoner who becomes aware of his cell, but cannot break the bars. Awareness deepens the wound, it does not heal it. Most people avoid this knowledge. They call it pessimism, because optimism is the opiate that keeps the herd in motion. But the pessimist does not despise life. He merely sees it without anesthesia. He loves truth more than comfort. He is the one who refuses to sing while being dragged. He watches the wheel turn and whispers, "I see you," yet even this clarity cannot save him. For to see the will is not to escape it. You may understand that love is illusion, but the heart still aches. You may laugh at desire's absurdity, yet the body still burns. The will does not yield to insight. It only mocks it. It lets you watch yourself struggle, knowing you cannot stop. It is both jailer and warden, and even your rebellion is part of its game. This is the true tragedy of consciousness. To be aware of your chains, and yet still dance. To long for freedom, knowing that freedom itself is just another form of wanting. Even enlightenment can become the will's final deception, the desire to end desire. The mind imagines salvation, and the will nods approvingly, for it has found another reason to keep you alive. So what remains? If every road leads back to the will, if every desire conceals another, if even freedom is another word for longing, what is left for the one who sees? Silence, the sound of acceptance, for the will cannot be destroyed by resistance. It only begins to quiet when it is no longer mistaken for you. When you stop fighting it, Stop identifying with its hunger. Stop calling its voice your own. Then something shifts. Not victory, not peace, but clarity. You become the watcher of the will, no longer its accomplice. This is not liberation, not yet. It is lucidity, the first step towards stillness. To live while knowing the futility of living, that is the rarest form of courage. To love while knowing love's deception, that is the beginning of compassion. The will remains, but its shadow grows thinner. It still commands, but you no longer kneel. And though the chain has not been broken, you begin to see that the prisoner was never truly bound. He was merely asleep.